Hola.
Hello, I'm Juan Camilo Estrada, and welcome to Epicenter. Today, we are going to talk about the sustainability of avocado markets. Manuel Recalde is a leader of the food chain for Latin America, and he tells us how the European and North American markets are currently moving and also how the market is moving in Colombia.
El aguacate
I believe that the avocado has been transformed over time into a fruit,
cultivo
a crop that is having a great preference and a great growth among European and North American consumers.
americano.
Probably in Latin America, in countries like Mexico,
México,
consumption is very high, and we already had it in Chile too,
luego Perú,
then Peru, but we have seen a significant growth in the North American market,
americano, que tiene
which has 330 million inhabitants, and the same in Europe, which has a very large population and also in a segment of consumers who have had a significant per capita income.
per cápita importante, por lo tanto,
Therefore, I believe there are good possibilities for the growth of this market.
además estamos hablando de un
Besides, we are talking about a fruit that offers an important nutritional value. And today, many consumers are looking at food in a different way.
la alimentación de una manera distinta.
There is a concern for healthy eating, for the nutritional contribution in crops and food products that are of little processing.
Que sean de poco proceso.
And there I think the avocado has an important space, not only as a salad, as we often know it, but perhaps accompanying a breakfast. So I think yes, there is a very interesting growth.
Lo que sí creo hay que cuidar
What I do believe is that we must take care of this growth that Colombia is having in avocado with good practices, not only in the production system, but also in access to these markets.
el mercado. Y con eso me refiero
And by that I mean good agricultural practices, complying with the regulatory framework of residues,
para no tener
so as not to have deviations that cause a bad image or a bad reputation, not only of the farmer, but also of an exporting country. I believe that Latin America has a fundamental role in world food.
somos un continente
We are eminently agricultural continent and a large producer with large areas and also an eminent exporter.
por lo tanto
So I believe that Latin America has a great opportunity for growth in agriculture.
cultura.
Como vimos,
As we have seen, part of the growth of the avocado market has to do with consumers. Implementing sustainability as an increasingly frequent practice allows Colombian avocado producers to be well accepted by consumers. Let's go a little deeper. What is the importance of applying sustainability in agricultural production?
La verdad que en la
The truth is that in sustainability, we are talking about a very broad concept that is related to practices that can be sustainable in the long term
en el largo plazo y que no
and that allows us to make a balance between the production ecosystem
el ecosistema productivo y el negocio.
and the business. That is, those practices in which I can balance the care of the soil, biodiversity, efficiency in the use of water, reduce greenhouse gases,
Y que
and that in a certain way contribute to mitigate or preserve the effects of agriculture itself or human action in different areas.
diferentes ámbitos. La necesidad
The need to implement sustainability today in agricultural production, I see it as a tremendous priority.
tremendamente prioritario
We have to think
que en los últimos 50 años
that in the last 50 years, the agricultural area
disponible para
available to produce crops has grown at a rate of 9%.
y el consumo
Human consumption has increased at a rate of 23% in the same period.
periodo. Por lo tanto, nosotros necesitamos
Therefore, we need to produce more food per hectare in order to make the needs of a world population
de una población mundial
that is growing by almost 2 billion inhabitants
en
in the next 28 years.
vamos a
We'll go from 8 billion to 9.7, and that means 60 million more inhabitants per year.
Es más por año. O sea,
That is 1.2 times Colombia.
yo de alguna manera
So somehow I have to make my system produce more.
sistema. Y ese aumento
And this productive increase has to be accompanied by sustainability.
contrario,
Otherwise, I could be affecting my productive system.
mi sistema productivo y tener
I could have a vicious circle and exhaust the soil and have water problems, and in the end, climate change will affect us all.
de agua y al final el cambio climático nos va a afectar a todos, porque podríamos tener
Therefore, for me, sustainability is part of innovation
por lo tanto, ya la sustentabilidad
and modern agriculture. Regenerative agriculture. This balance between the productive ecosystem and the business, I think it is something that we have to look at in any case and that cannot be left out of modern agriculture.
moderna.
Ahora bien,
Now, the Colombian avocado market has taken on a very important challenge, and that is to position itself by betting on sustainable production. Let us now learn how sustainability is implemented in modern agricultural production.
Que hoy día
I would tell you that today, what I have seen in Latin America,
hay prácticas
there are practices related to reducing greenhouse gases.
gases de efecto invernadero,
That can be done, for example, by reducing the amount of plastic we are using in agriculture.
la cantidad de plástico que estamos usando en la agricultura, cambiando el tipo de envases,
Changing the type of packaging, using innovative products with low doses that require smaller amounts of packaging,
siendo más eficiente
being more efficient in fertilization. For example, by being more efficient in fertilization, I can reduce greenhouse gases.
de efecto invernadero, otras prácticas,
Other practices with efficiency in the use of water by applying the correct amount of water. If I have to apply 1,000 liters per hectare, it is 1,000, nor 1.2 thousand, because water today is a resource that is going to be scarce at some point.
caso. Entonces,
So as I incorporate these practices, I will be having improvements in my crops. The issue of plant cover or incorporate plant material back into the soil as far as possible, and that will not be a reservoir of pests or diseases I have to take care.
enfermedades tengo que cuidar.
So I say that is not to arrive and implement it all at once. It is a whole process. But there are several practices that are already starting to work, and from the crop protection industry side,
Innovación,
what we are looking for is product innovation. New products that are environmentally friendly. We are incorporating a platform of biological products to complement our platform of traditional products,
y de esta forma
and thus offer increasingly friendly and more innovative solutions in line with modern agriculture.
cultura moderna. Es muy interesante.
It is very interesting, and I think it is a concept that still requires a lot of development.
Pero la agricultura
But basically, I would define regenerative agriculture, at least the best definition I've heard for me,
el balance que existe
is a balance that exists between my productive ecosystem, where I have the soil, the crop, the pests, diseases, communities, etc., and the business.
ese balance
That balance that occurs in between, and that I have to seek the best balance possible in reducing greenhouse gases, in improving the efficiency of water use, in caring for the biodiversity of my productive ecosystem.
es
That balance is a process of regenerative agriculture, which I cannot implement at once.
es prácticamente un viaje.
It is practically a journey because what I do on one side impacts me on the other. I cannot lose sight of the business because the business at the end, the profitability that I get is what allows me to implement practices to obtain that balance, and also to implement practices that allow me to generate welfare for people who are related to that productive ecosystem.
Productivo. Entonces, yo diría que
So I would say that the key word here is balance. Balance between what I produce and the business.
como lo dice Manuel,
As Manuel says, by reducing the use of plastics, the consumption of resources, and being more conscious with the use of water, we will practice sustainability.
La demanda del aguacate
The demand for avocado has grown exponentially due to its flavor and nutritional value. Thanks to this, the environmental and social challenges of the crop have also been growing, have worked as long as we comply with a regulatory framework. Let's hear more clearly what is the importance of its operation.
El marco regulatorio
The regulatory framework refers to the fact that all countries have established maximum residue limits for products and crops.
y cultivos.
So when I apply a phytosanitary product on avocado, watermelon, melon, or any other crop, I have to comply with a maximum residue limit, both locally if I sell in Colombia or at export level if I sell to another destination. This regulatory framework establishes a maximum amount of active ingredient that could contain, for example, an avocado of a certain
Producto fitosanitario.
phytosanitary product. And if I do not comply with that, I have a deviation, an excess. My fruit can be rejected. When rejected, I cannot market it.
Por lo tanto,
Therefore, I have a huge economic loss. And not only the economic loss, because there is a lot of reputation for the farmer who is exporting.
para la compañía exportadora,
For the exporting company through which the farmer is exporting, and finally for the country, because in the end there are deviations.
entonces creo que es súper importante
I think it is important when one is starting to export new crops, such as avocados in Colombia, to be very careful and pay a lot of attention to comply with this regulatory framework. Otherwise, if there are many deviations, it can generate a bad image for the country, and that generates a problem of access to the market.
es importante cumplirlo.
That is why it is important to comply with the regulatory framework, and also because it is the legal framework. If I do not comply with it, I am not complying with a legal regulation that is related to taking care of human health, because this framework is established by the agricultural and health authorities, so that the products do not generate risk in the population.
Si cumplimos,
If we comply with the regulatory framework in export destinations and sustainability agricultural practices, such as reducing our carbon footprint, being more efficient in the use of water, and promoting biodiversity, we will have easier access to this market. And you may ask, is the regulatory framework being complied with?
En general,
In general, at least the information that we handle from the point of view of analysis at the port of destination.
más del 95%
More than 95% of the receipts in Europe are within the legal framework.
normalmente cumplen el marco legal.
They normally comply with the legal framework. There is a proportion that sometimes deviates,
Pero muy baja,
but it is very low, and in general, I would say that Latin America, being an exporting continent, has a low occurrence of deviations, mainly in Europe where we have a lot of data.
donde tenemos muchos datos.
In general, compliance is quite high, but I'm going to be very cautious in crops that are starting out, because one does not have the same experience.
La misma experiencia que, por ejemplo,
For example, Chile has many years exporting grapes, cherries, kiwi,
pero cuando uno
but one starts out in a crop such as avocado with growing exports as Colombia is having today.
Colombia, creo que hay que poner
I think you have to pay close attention. You always have to pay attention because it is a regulatory framework. So I always have to have it. But especially when I'm starting out, I have to be very rigorous in that compliance until I have a good learning curve.
ahora
Now let's find out what losses producers incur as a result of non-compliance with the regulatory framework.
hay que mirar
I would say that today we have to look at the system as a whole. That is, I have to worry about producing the necessary quantity and quality, in this case, has avocado, or the variety I am producing.
produciendo. Pero adicionalmente,
But additionally, I have to be looking at other components that are variables that give me access to the market. For example, the regulatory framework. If I do not comply with the regulatory framework, I will have all the economic loss, and I have already made all the expense of production.
Como lo dije antes, desde el punto de vista de imagen.
I arrived at port destination. My fruit is rejected. I cannot sell it. I have loss, as I said before, from the point of view of image.
De acceso al mercado. ¿Por qué?
Because younger consumers in the 30 or 35
Años o 35 y menos,
our under segment are giving preference to those brands, those farmers, those who are promoting sustainable practices,
promoviendo prácticas sustentables, llámese
such as improving water use efficiency, reducing greenhouse gases, improving soil biodiversity, caring for soil health, including practices such as ethical and responsible trade, the use of recycled packaging.
reciclados, todas esas prácticas.
All those practices that are associated with sustainability today are being very well received by a segment of younger consumers, and they give preference to those companies. Therefore, sustainability today is also a variable related to market access. Resources are not infinite. The agricultural surface has a fairly stable growth. With respect to a world population that grows in a greater proportion, as we have a greater amount of consumption increase, with respect to the availability of arable land, we may at some point have a food deficit, and if we do not take care of our production system,
Nuestro sistema productivo,
our ecosystem, environment, we can generate even more problems and make the gap even bigger. Therefore, for me, it is something fundamental that is here to stay, and that is a practice that we should be looking at more and more.
que hay que ir mirando cada vez más.
Hoy en día los
Nowadays, products with sustainable practices have been well received by the younger population, being more conscious with our consumption habits. It is important to emphasize that resources are not infinite and that practicing sustainability is fundamental for the future.
ahora
Now, let's learn about the relationship between technology and sustainability.
actualmente
Nowadays, consumers have performed brands and foods that practice sustainability. So companies have focused on agriculture based on science, innovation, and technology.
y la tecnología.
La tecnología sin duda tiene
Technology undoubtedly has a great role there from the point of view of the science of innovation,
incorporar
because by incorporating modern technology practices such as the use of drones, soil mapping with drones, can give practices of targeted applications in sectors where they are really needed.
prácticas de aplicaciones dirigidas en sectores donde realmente se necesitan. Asimismo,
Likewise, the development of environmentally friendly products,
de productos biológicos,
biological products, traditional products that allow a minimum impact also
impacto mínimo, también contribuye.
contributes today. Scientific progress has been very high, and the use of digital tools in agriculture.
En la agricultura de precisión,
Precision agriculture is becoming increasingly strong. So I think that the use of science and technology will certainly go hand in hand with this agriculture of the future. I don't see it any other way.
Sabemos
We know that farmers face and control insects, pests, and diseases. In the avocado crop, there is often a disease called anthracnose, which causes the fall of the fruits that are in formation. Now let's learn about a biological fungicide and how it helps control the disease.
La enfermedad presenta
The disease has a symptomatology in the field. There are people, health crews that the farms train. Sometimes we support the training of the farms,
en algunas ocasiones
and they walk the lots periodically, observing especially the apical part of the tree.
prácticamente observando sobre todo la parte, digamos, apical del árbol. Es una enfermedad de alguna manera predecible.
It is a disease that is somewhat predictable. The climate conditions of high humidity and high temperature in an avocado crop mean that we have the pathogen and the host, which is the tree. So we have to be careful that it does not enter the plant and cause damage.
Entonces tenemos una
So we have a kind of bacteria at this time, unique in the market and with a very high concentration, that allows us to handle a little dose.
y pues asegurar que la eficacia
So we have a kind of bacteria at this time, unique in the market and with a very high concentration,
crecimiento del cultivo, que son dos propiedades
that allows us to handle a little lower doses as well as promoting a little crop growth, which are two intrinsic properties of biocontrol bacteria such as bacillus. It is totally environmentally friendly because it has been proven that it has no action on beneficial organisms,
es una bacteria
on beneficial fungi that are mainly in the soil. It is a bacteria that is found in the open air. It is an isolate from the soil
pero es un organismo del suelo
that has then been fermented in a processing plant. But it is a soil organism which by effects, let's say in nature,
es la anthragnosis,
has action on harmful fungi such as atranosis, such as botrytis, some phytophthora among other fungi.
en una aplicación
But if in a case, let's say in real life, in a commercial application on a farm, it is applied and there are bees, wasps, birds, it has no action, nor does it have any effect on the people who work in the crop.
se debe usar un equipo de
Personal protective equipment must be used because usually they do not use it alone.
usualmente hay otros productos
There are usually other chemical synthesis products, so we do not promote its use without personal protective equipment.
un equipo de protección personal.
As you know, most of the house avocado in Colombia is exported, as we as a country must ensure that the product goes totally or as much as possible with minimum proportions of detectable active
Proporciones mínimas
active ingredients. By incorporating a biological product at the end of the cycle phase, it is much more innocuous, let's say the final product to be consumed, in addition to the protection it provides against diseases and the promotion of growth in crops such as avocado.
como el aguacate.
¿Sabían que
Did you know that not only crop protection products can generate losses of 70 to 80% of production?
lo ideal sería
The ideal would be to use environmentally friendly methods to achieve a balance in the ecosystem. And it's time to review the photos that you share with us through our email, epicentro@gmail.com. This is our section closer to the field.
Finca La Bendición?
Finca La Bendición from Instagram shows us with the Más Cerca del Campo TV some pictures of avocado, and in his description he writes a very interesting information. He says that temperature and rainfall are the two factors of greatest impact on the development of its cultivation. Regarding the temperature, the varieties have a different behavior according to the race. Prolonged droughts cause leaf fall, which reduces yields, and excess rainfall during flowering and fruiting reduces production and causes fruit drop. Prolonged droughts cause leaf fall, which reduces yields, and excess rainfall during flowering and fruiting reduces production and causes fruit drop.
Jaime Rosso.
Now let's see this magnificent photograph by Jamie Rosso from the Chaparral Trail here in Guan, Antigua. He sends us a photo of a woodpecker, which is a medium-sized woodpecker that inhabits oak forests from the southern United States to Colombia.
Desde Liborina,
From Livonia, Antioquia, Jerónimo Aguirre Herrera sends us some pictures of his calf, which is named Lalo. Very nice calf.
y junto a su madre.
Luz Estela Caceres from Armenia. Quindio sends us this picture. She says it is an invitation to recycle. Thank you very much for participating in the section Closer to the Field TV. Remember that you can send any photo and any video that brings you closer to the field to our email epicentrotvagro@gmail.com or post them directly on the networks Más Cerca del Campo TV. Thank you very much for joining us and for always remaining active. See you every Thursday. Remember, starting at 8:30 p.m. in a new Epicenter program.